So we'll be starting with sieving our flour, and these are the butters that we are going to be using. I placed it in warm water, or you can just place it on something hot. So we'll be using 5 eggs for this recipe, and you see the butter I have there is just 5, that's 500 naira butter. So I'm going to break the egg. I make sure that I check the egg before placing it on the inside the bowl. Okay, so I don't just break it immediately and put it inside the bowl. I always like to check the egg in case the egg is bad, you know. So it's always good to just break it, look at the inside of the egg if it's okay before placing it inside your bowl, because sometimes the egg can be bad. So I'm just going to whisk it with the spoon. As you can see, I'm whisking it with my spoon. So after doing that, I'm going to get my butter, okay, and make sure to remove any eggshell from the egg mixture. Okay, remove any eggshell. Now this is the sugar. I'll be adding baking powder to my flour. Yes, then I'm going to make sure it's evenly mixed. I'm going to keep stirring until it's evenly mixed. Okay, I want the baking powder to get into all the flour, not just some part of the flour. So I'll be measuring my sugar now. So I'm going to be using 7 spoons of sugar for this recipe. Now after doing that, I will be pouring in my melted butter into the sugar. Pouring my melted butter into the sugar. This butter is 500 naira butter, okay. That is, if you are in Nigeria, it's just for 500 naira. I always like to melt my butter before turning it whenever I'm making cake. Okay, but you can also use the unmelted butter, but most of the time I prefer this technique because it's less stressful and easier. So I'm going to mix the butter with the sugar before we would start turning our egg into the egg, butter and then sugar mixture. So this is me. I'm trying to make sure that the sugar is dissolved in the butter. Then I'll be whisking my egg into the butter and sugar gradually so that it doesn't curdle. Okay, I'm just going to mix it gradually, stir, continue stirring, then before adding the remaining egg mixture. So that's just it. Now after that, after turning, I'm going to set it aside so that it will dissolve properly. Okay, properly. I'm gonna set it aside, then I will be adding my flour and baking powder mixture that I've kept aside. So this is me just making sure that all the sugar and butter is out of the first plate. So keep turning, just trying to make sure that all the butter is melted. Okay, don't want to have any lump in the cake. Okay, so I'm still stirring. I don't want the sugar to settle down underneath. So I'm trying to make sure that the sugar is well dissolved. So you just try and make sure that the sugar is well dissolved in it. You don't want to have sugar in it that is still lumpy. Okay, make sure that the sugar is properly dissolved before this next stage of adding your flour and baking powder. Make sure that the sugar in the butter and egg, make sure it's well dissolved. So the flour you're going to be adding gradually. Okay, gradually you add your flour little by little. Okay, until you get your right consistency. So we are still going to be adding the flour. Yes, that's all of it. Now it's going to get much more thicker, but as it goes it will become lighter, because when you start adding in other ingredients, you see that your cake batter will get lighter, because I'll be adding alcohol and browning into this recipe, but I won't be using any flavor. Now this is the alcohol and this is the browning. So the browning, I'm going to add just a little bit. Don't add too much browning, if not your cake will be bitter. You just need a little browning. Okay, if not your cake is going to be very bitter. So if you don't want a bitter cake, don't add too much browning. You can see the quantity I added. It's not one up to half spoon, I'm telling you. Okay, so depending on the size of your cake batter, but don't add too much browning to it. You can see the color has already changed. The cake is already brown. So now I'll be adding the alcohol, which is 2 cups. You can add more, but I don't want much alcohol in this cake. Okay, I don't want it. I just want a little bit of alcohol. You can have up to 4 cups of alcohol, depends on you. Okay, but 2 cups is okay. Okay, and you can notice that the batter has become lighter, and that is how it ought to be. Okay, it's supposed to get light. The more you add other things like flavor, it will be lighter. So I buttered my pan already. I've already buttered the pan, so we're adding the cake batter to it. The cake batter to it. Try and scoop all the cake from the bowl and add it into the baking pan. So now I'll just try and level it up so that we don't have hole underneath. Okay, it's best to just hit it on the table so that it's more leveled. Okay, so yeah, and you need to do it properly. Okay, so I'm going to be using stove and pot for this baking this cake. So the cake is already ready. Okay, I just added little charcoal underneath the pot. And please, if you are doing this with a pot, use a very thick pot. Okay, so that you don't spoil the pot. The pot should not be a light pot, if not the pot will go bad. So the pot has to be a very good pot and thick. The cake got burnt a little bit on the side, you can see, because the fire was very hot underneath and I left it for a long time. Okay, longer than usual, but within 30 minutes is okay for the cake to be ready. 30 minutes is more than okay for the cake to be ready. Okay, so that's why if you look at the side, you see solid baby brown and a small dent on it. So try and hit the cake batter very well so that you don't have any hole underneath your cake. So this is the cake. Okay, yes, got a little bit brown. The fire was very hot and I didn't control it. I didn't add water to reduce the fire.